was a statement that instantly sent shockwaves through global media. I may do it. I may not do it. With those few words, former US President Donald Trump plunged the world into 2 weeks of uncertainty, hinting at a decision that could drag America into one of the most volatile conflicts in recent history. The message came straight from the White House press briefing room, delivered by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, echoing Trump's carefully calculated ambiguity. According to her, the president was giving himself a 2-week window to decide whether the US would step directly into the escalating war between Iran and Israel. A move that, depending on who you ask, could either stabilize the region or ignite it like never before. But this wasn't just any war. This was a powder keg decades in the making, now sparking live on television, social media, and the ground. As missiles rain down across borders and nuclear facilities become battlegrounds, the world isn't just waiting for diplomacy, it's holding its breath for a decision from one man. Trump didn't offer a full plan. He didn't offer a firm commitment. What he offered was uncertainty, and in the world of geopolitics, uncertainty is fuel for fear, speculation, and chaos. But what exactly triggered this 2-week deadline? And what's really unfolding behind the scenes? The answer starts with a war that's no longer just about two nations. The Iran-Israel conflict didn't start with Trump, and it won't end with him. But in recent days, the situation has spiraled far beyond the typical tit-for-tat skirmishes the region has long endured. What's unfolding now is a full-scale confrontation, with casualties mounting and boundaries fading between military targets and civilian lives. Just hours before Trump's press secretary addressed the nation, Iranian missiles slammed into southern Israel, striking near the Soroka Medical Center. Iran claimed they were targeting a military site adjacent to the hospital. But that didn't matter to the dozens of injured civilians inside. According to Israeli health officials, 71 people were wounded. The line between war zone and sanctuary had officially disappeared. And this wasn't an isolated attack. Since the conflict reignited, over 24 Israelis have been killed. On the Iranian side, numbers are even more staggering. The human rights activists news agency, Prana, has reported 639 deaths in Iran just since last Friday. These aren't just numbers. These are homes, families, entire communities caught in the crossfire. But it's not just about bombs. It's about what those bombs are targeting. Because Israel isn't just retaliating with surface strikes, they're going after nuclear sites. The Natanz facility, already hit once, was struck again. And in a move that stunned analysts, Israel claimed it had struck an inactive nuclear reactor, in Arak, a direct message that no part of Iran's nuclear infrastructure is off limits. Iran insists these are peaceful sites. Israel and its allies insist otherwise. But with blood in the streets and uranium in the soil, this war isn't just being fought with missiles. It's being fought with perception, propaganda, and preemptive power plays. And now the US is being pulled into that power struggle, whether it wants to be or not. But for Trump, the real red line isn't the death toll, it's the nuclear one. To understand why Trump is even considering plunging the US into this chaos, you have to look at one word: nuclear. According to his press secretary, the president's number one priority isn't the rising death toll, the missiles, or even the political pressure. It's making sure Iran never completes a nuclear weapon. And there's one place that haunts every briefing, every whisper inside the Pentagon, and every satellite image from orbit: Fordo. Carved deep into the side of a mountain, the Fordo uranium enrichment facility has become the nerve center of global anxiety. Iran claims it's used only for peaceful, civilian purposes. But US intelligence agencies and Israel see it differently. To them, it's the heart of a secret weapons program, one that's allegedly closer than ever to producing a bomb. But here's the twist: Israel can't touch it. Fordo's remote, fortified location makes it nearly impossible for Israeli weapons to reach. It was built underground for exactly this reason: to survive a first strike. Only the US possesses the kind of bunker-buster bombs powerful enough to do any real damage. And that puts enormous pressure directly on Trump's shoulders. According to multiple leaks, including reports from CBS and the Wall Street Journal, Trump has already approved attack plans for Fordo. the only thing stopping him? A last-minute diplomatic miracle or a change of heart? But the clock is ticking. The world knows it. Iran knows it. And so do Trump's advisors. And behind all the vague quotes and conflicting statements, one fact looms above the rest. If Fordo is bombed, there's no going back. Behind closed doors, Trump is being shown maps, satellite footage, and classified briefings. But what happens when the intelligence doesn't support the story you want to tell? Earlier this year, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard stood before Congress and delivered a sobering assessment. There was no concrete evidence that Iran was actively pursuing a nuclear weapon. Her testimony, built on months of international surveillance and expert analysis, directly contradicted the urgency Trump was now broadcasting to the world. And how did Trump respond? He dismissed it. Flat out. In fact, according to insiders, Trump has repeatedly brushed off briefings that don't align with his instincts or political goals. When asked about the reliability of the intelligence community, he deflected. When pressed about Gabbard's testimony, he said nothing at all. This creates a dangerous paradox. The person holding the decision to strike may be ignoring the very data that's supposed to guide that decision. And while Trump claims Iran is closer than ever to building a nuclear weapon, his own intelligence chief says the opposite. Who's right, who's bluffing? Or is this just another layer of strategic confusion designed to keep Iran guessing? But it's not just about facts and figures, it's about perception. Because in war, perception can shape policy faster than truth ever could. And the perception right now? A US president possibly acting on instinct over evidence. A nuclear site possibly days away from being reduced to rubble. And an entire intelligence network potentially sidelined by one man's belief in his own gut. But as the White House plays coy and the Pentagon remains silent, Iran isn't staying quiet. They're issuing warnings and threats. Loud ones. If the United States thought it could enter this conflict without consequences, Iran just issued a stark reminder: this is not America's war. That warning came directly from Saeed Khatibzadeh, Iran's deputy foreign minister, in a pointed interview with the BBC. Calm but unflinching, he didn't mince words. If Trump brings the US into this fight, he said, it would unleash hell in the region. A hell that, in his words, would trap the US in a quagmire of aggression, destruction, and endless retaliation. But he didn't stop there. He called US involvement a deliberate provocation, not a peacekeeping mission. According to Khatibzadeh, this war isn't about America, and it never was. He warned that any move by Trump would not only prolong the suffering but also cement his legacy as a president who entered a war he doesn't belong in. And for all of Trump's public ambiguity, Iran seems convinced he's leaning toward war. Why? Because while the rhetoric sounds cautious, the bombs are still falling. Israeli strikes continue to hammer Iranian facilities. The death toll continues to climb. And behind it all, the looming presence of the US military grows more visible by the hour. Despite this, Iranian officials insist diplomacy is still their first option. But there's a catch. As Khatibzadeh bluntly stated, while bombardment continues, we cannot start any negotiation. In other words, the window for diplomacy is shrinking and fast. Iran's message is clear: stop the strikes, stay out, or be prepared for the consequences. Because the moment Trump crosses that line, the narrative changes. The war won't just be Iran versus Israel anymore. It'll be something much bigger and far deadlier. And while diplomats scramble behind the scenes, the truth is this: the region is already on fire, and one decision could turn it into an inferno. While the world watches missiles light up the skies over the Middle East, another battle is unfolding in silence, a war of words, whispered through encrypted lines and back-channel diplomacy. According to Reuters, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has been in direct contact with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araqi. Not once. Not twice. But multiple times, all since Israeli strikes began. These calls weren't public. They weren't formal. And they weren't coordinated through Congress. These were shadow negotiations, unfolding quietly while the headlines screamed about war. What were they discussing? Ceasefires? Sanctions? Secret terms? No one outside the inner circle truly knows. But one thing is certain, desperation has found its way into diplomacy. The irony is impossible to ignore. As bombs fall on Iranian nuclear facilities, American officials are still talking to the very government being bombed. It's a surreal dance, one foot in peace, the other in total war. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that communication with Iran is ongoing, but refused to give any details. No timelines. No conditions. No confirmation of whether Iranian officials might even be invited to the White House. And that ambiguity? It's part of the strategy. Trump's administration is keeping everything deliberately vague. No promises. No red lines. Just enough chaos to keep Iran guessing and the public off balance. But here's the harsh reality, talks don't survive long in a war zone. Iran's deputy foreign minister has made it clear, we cannot negotiate while the bombs are falling. And right now, the bombs haven't stopped. So the world is watching a bizarre and dangerous paradox unfold, missiles in the air, phone lines buzzing underground, and both sides pretending they still want peace. But if diplomacy fails, the next move might not come in whispers. It might come from the sky. While diplomats speak in circles and press briefings remain vague, one plan is reportedly sitting on Trump's desk: a direct strike on Fordo, Iran's heavily fortified underground nuclear facility. It's not just any target. Fordo is the crown jewel of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Carved deep into a mountainside near the city of Qom, it was built with one goal in mind: to survive an attack. Israel's arsenal doesn't stand a chance against it. The facility is buried under layers of rock and reinforced steel, far beyond the reach of conventional weapons. But the US? The US has the bomb for it. Military analysts believe only one type of weapon in the US inventory could destroy Fordo: the massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bunker buster designed for exactly this kind of mission. And that's what makes the possibility of a strike so real and so terrifying. According to a CBS report, Trump has already approved the strike plan. Not the execution yet, but the framework, the routes, the payloads, the exact targets. It's all there, waiting for his final word. And if that word comes, there's no room left for diplomacy. Iran has repeatedly warned that any attack on its nuclear sites will be met with unmatched retaliation. Experts warn such a move could ignite a regional war involving Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq and Syria, and even direct attacks on US troops across the Middle East. The Fordo strike wouldn't be a warning shot, it would be a declaration. And yet Trump continues to straddle the line. On one hand, he posts on Truth Social, mocking the media for not knowing his thoughts. On the other, he's reportedly holding off the strike in hopes that Iran folds at the last second and gives up its nuclear ambitions. But Iran has shown no signs of surrender. In fact, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, just flat-out rejected Trump's demands. The nuclear program will continue, he says, and any American interference will be answered with force. The question now isn't if the strike is ready, it's what will trigger it. And if Trump does give the order, it won't just be Fordo that gets hit. It'll be everything holding this fragile piece together. The fog surrounding Trump's decision isn't just political, it's tactical. His administration is playing a careful game of strategic ambiguity, feeding just enough information to keep adversaries guessing, while withholding enough to deny accountability if things spiral out of control. But the truth is, the world may not have to wait the full 2 weeks. Leaks from inside the Pentagon suggest that all logistical pieces are already in place: surveillance assets, bomber strike routes, carrier groups repositioned. The military isn't waiting. It's ready. Trump, by all accounts, just hasn't pulled the trigger. And yet, confusion reigns. First, CBS reported that Trump had approved strike plans. Then, Trump himself denied it, taking to Truth Social to slam the media, saying, "They have no idea what my thoughts are concerning Iran." He didn't confirm. He didn't deny. He just stirred the pot again. This strategy of suspense has left allies uneasy and enemies on edge. European diplomats are scrambling to schedule emergency talks. Israel, emboldened by quiet US support, continues striking Iranian infrastructure with increasing boldness. Iran, in turn, prepares for the worst. And somewhere in the middle of it all, the American people wait with no clear understanding of what's happening behind the curtain. Supporters are told to trust in President Trump. Critics warn he's walking into a trap, a war that could drain the US militarily, economically, and diplomatically. And the world? The world is on high alert. Because when one president controls the fate of an entire region and refuses to show his hand, the line between strategy and recklessness becomes dangerously thin. The deadline is near. The weapons are ready. And the next move will define more than just Trump's legacy, it could reshape the Middle East forever. In war, decisions aren't just made in command centers, they're made in silence, in waiting, in the breath held between diplomacy and devastation. Trump's self-imposed two-week window may sound like time. But in geopolitical terms, it's an eternity and a heartbeat. Missiles are already flying. Civilians are already dying. And yet the world still waits not for peace to begin, but to see if war can be avoided. Some believe Trump is bluffing, using ambiguity as leverage. Others believe the strike is inevitable, that the path has already been laid brick by brick through rhetoric, posturing, and rising bloodshed. But one truth cuts through the noise: the next move will be irreversible. A strike on Fordo won't be a warning, it'll be a turning point. And whether Trump pulls the trigger or steps back at the last moment, his legacy, America's role in the region, and countless lives will be shaped by what happens in the days ahead. All eyes are on Washington. All nerves are frayed. And the world once again is holding its breath. Because when a president says, "I may do it, I may not," the silence that follows could be the loudest message of all: